But I think that game is going to have a lot to say about what we think of the Big Ten or the ACC, right? Not so much what we think of Notre Dame or Wisconsin, or even whether or not one of those teams is playing for a national title. Like, there's other games that you need to pay attention to in there. But I'm excited about that one. November 27th, we get Ohio State, Michigan. We missed the game last year. I think it's the first time the game wasn't played since, like, World War II, which sucked. But Ohio State, Michigan is one in which people plan their entire Thanksgivings around. It's November 27th. It's big noon on Fox. Hopefully, Michigan has figured out that it needs to probably play J.J. McCarthy. Here's the thing. When I talked with Jordan Palmer and TJ Houshmandzadeh when we did the Fox Sports draft party, they were bullish on Cade McNamara. And I kind of get it, because I watched Cade McNamara in a 3-overtime win against Rutgers, but I watched Cade McNamara in a 3-overtime win against Rutgers, and he wasn't the dude that they wanted out there. They wanted Joe Milton out there. So I can't buy into it just yet. And then, add to that, they also, I love the way the transfer portal gives and takes, right? Because Tyler Shuck ends up at Texas Tech. Why does Tyler Shuck end up at Texas Tech, right? Because Texas Tech quarterback transferred to Michigan. So you got Alan Bowman, Texas Tech quarterback, that transferred to Michigan, competing with J.J. McCarthy and others to try to get it done, right? To try to get over the hump that is Ohio State. Because outside of beating Ohio State, Jim Harbaugh has had a pretty doggone good run, but last year sucked. Last year was not good. But people were like, Jim Harbaugh's going to get fired or he's going to get a head coaching job in the NFL. Neither happened. Either because the job wasn't there and he didn't want it, or because he actually does want to win at Michigan. And Ward Manuel went out there and won a contract negotiation for Michigan. I mean, that's a really good contract for them. They're paying him basically half of what they were, but they will pay him what they were going to pay him and then some if he wins in the way that he expects to, which is to play for Big Ten championships, win Big Ten championships, and play for national championships, right? It means you got to beat Ohio State. Now, beating Ohio State does not mean you win the Big Ten championship, but it ain't going to hurt you none, right? It's like a quarterback with a 40-yard dash. It ain't going to hurt you none to have that, okay? You want it. And for Michigan fans, they're due. Ohio State has won this game for the last 10 years straight. It's not close in as far as the recent rivalry. And I did this thing a couple days ago where I ran down what Ohio State has basically been like since, 2005. And they've had just one, I'm not kidding you, one season in which they have not won at least 10 games since 2005, right? And I went with 2005 because before that they go 8-4. But you get to what I'm talking about here is that Ohio State is not only used to winning, they're used to winning by a lot, especially in the last 20 years. And that's through 3 head coaches, Tressel, Lou Fickell for the year, and then Urban Meyer. And then I get into this, another thing on the JR conversation, JR podcast of the number 1 ranked show of what happens if Ohio State doesn't suffer tattoo gate, which, I think you're going to be into and I think you're going to be interested in. And then December 4th, we have I think it's the Mountain West title game, along with the Big Ten title game. So the Big Ten title game is going to be 7 o'clock on Fox Central Standard Time, 8 p.m. on Fox Eastern Time. All this as we continue to figure out, Wisconsin, Notre Dame, and Chicago, Ohio State hosting Oregon, and Oklahoma hosting Nebraska. I'm excited about all of this stuff, and it's been a while since I did something like a live stream, so we're all getting used to this once again. Matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and center myself right quick. Yo, how long I've been talking while y'all let me not be centered? About 20 minutes? That's ridiculous. Let's see. Let's go through the chat, see who's in here, and see if we can have a good time. Okay, so Cameron Tarver, noon kickoffs are lit. I like them. Only people that hate noon kickoffs are the people that actually go to the games. That's just the long and the short of it. That's what it's always going to be. Those people are always going to think that those things suck. And the folks that, don't think that they're that much fun, I can't tell you not go to the games because you make the games better, but you're biting the bullet for all of us if you're going to the game at 11 a.m. Also, Saturday. Ooh, wow. Saturday, September 4th at 2:30 on Fox, we get Louisiana at Texas. This is one I have circled. This is one in which I think that every real college football fan is going to watch because this is Steve Sarkisian in year one. This is perhaps Casey Thompson or Hudson Card in year one. This is Pete Kwiatkowski in year one. This is Louisiana being this close to winning the Sun Belt Championship in a year in which everybody was all over Coastal Carolina. So they lose that game by 2 to Coastal Carolina when they play in the regular season, but they had earned the right to play for the Sun Belt Championship later that year, and that game gets called off due to COVID. Then we're talking about Billy Napier being up for jobs that include Tennessee and Auburn, only to stay at Louisiana. Why? Because he's got 98% of his team returning, including his starting quarterback in Levi Lewis. Now they lose Elijah Mitchell, who might actually be up there with Trey Sermon playing for the Niners come September. But they get back everybody on defense. So they know who they are, and they know what they're capable of. Remember, they knock off Iowa State last year, who played in the Big 12 championship game and won the Fiesta Bowl. So it ain't like this is going to be new to them. They know how to win these games. You got to go to Texas in a year in which Texas hired Steve Sarkisian to get them into national championship games, let alone win the Big 12 title, even though Oklahoma's won the last 6 in a row. So this is a big game for a lot of people. Billy Napier gets to stump. Basically, I'm going wherever I want to go if he beats Steve Sarkisian in year one on September 4th. It's a big game. It's a huge game. It's also the one in which you got to watch Bijan Robinson. Okay? Bijan Robinson is the best player in the country we're not talking about enough. That dude was a monster in the state of Arizona coming out of high school. He averaged 17.1 yards or 17.7 yards per carry coming out of high school. He's that good. Matter of fact, Arizona's produced some hitters here of late, man. Chuba Purdy, Brock Purdy, Jack Miller. My God. Spencer Rattler, Mark Andrews. I mentioned Bijan, Jake Smith. If you're Jed Fish or Herm Edwards, just rope off the state of Arizona. Don't let anybody leave, man. And y'all can put together a winner. And I'm so excited about that, man. I think that could be one of the all-time games. That's so much fun. That's going to be such a good time. I'm excited about that. Let me see who else is in the chat here. Let me see. Nate the Great's in the chat. Oh, you got the shaft for the times. No, I didn't, because that noon kickoff time is the prime time game now, right? That's the one. You want to play in that game because, check it, everybody's putting that in there because they are trying to feast on the television audience. People that are saying, I like noon kickoffs because they're lit, like Cameron Tarver. You are less likely to change your channel from the channel that you designated 11 a.m. throughout the day and Saturdays, right? That's what we've learned about college football fans. You aren't really channel surfing like that. You usually put one game on, and then because you're probably watching a game that happened in your conference, you're much more likely to watch the next game that is happening in your conference, right? So like, say OU Nebraska. Let's say the game after that is something like, I don't know, Baylor La Tech. I'm just pulling one out, right? You're much more likely to watch that because you're a Big 12 fan watching a Big 12 team as opposed to flipping over to an SEC game, right? It's one of the reasons you're seeing some of these rights, I think, get streamlined into these networks, or at least one of the ways in which they sell them. So it's interesting to me. Let's see. Orb Gom is also saying, don't mind the early starts if watching on TV. Yeah, 100%. Nebraska ain't even close to where they want to be. Yeah, it's true. Like, because they ain't 95. They ain't even 97. Not playing for national titles. Will they expand the college football playoff this year? Negative. They will not expand it this year. As a matter of fact, I don't expect the college football playoff to be expanded until 2025 when the networks redo their TV deals with the conferences. Like the Big 12, the Big 10, I think they're going to try to talk about some stuff, though I think the Big 10 is in a partnership with Fox, so that's just what it is. And then we'll figure out what the Pac-12 is going to do because they just hired a new commissioner basically to help them handle their TV negotiations. So that'll be interesting. Like, a thought that I had that I think is a little inside baseball is, what if the Pac-12 goes to a streaming service? Netflix, Prime Video, Peacock, even Discovery, who is going to buy Warner Media, right? And we all know that Amazon is trying to buy MGM for MGM Entertainment for $8.5 billion. We'll see if the antitrust lawyers let that through. But all that stuff is in flux. And I think the playoff is going to come out of whatever the landscape looks like. We know what ESPN is going to do, right? We know that they have bought the SEC. right? The SEC was getting paid $50 million by CBS annually, which is highway robbery. And now that number's up to $300 million because what Alabama, LSU, Georgia, Florida have all done here in the last 15 years. That's how you increase the valuation of your conference. Also get into this on the JR podcast, the number one ranked show. What if Nick Saban went to Texas? Really interesting conversation, and I'm really proud of the effort that I put into answering that question.